And we're live. Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, LinkedIn. Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome to another session of Unleash Your Green Gorilla. I'm Virginia Cinquemani. I'm the director and founder of Green Gorilla Consultants Ltd, which is a coaching and training company dedicated to sustainability professionals. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Justin Douglas. So Justin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Virginia. It's great to be here on this LinkedIn Live. Very exciting. And yes, so as Virginia said, my name is Justin Douglas, and you can see that I'm a strengths coach on the screen, a certified strengths coach with the Gallup organization. And certainly something that Virginia and I both share a passion for is the whole topic of strengths. My work focuses on coaching people either one-to-one or in group settings, teams of people, and also delivering other training courses around communications, building relationships, consulting, project management, all sorts of topics. So I'm delighted to be here with you, Virginia. We've met face-to-face before all the pandemic in our local town, because we both live in the same town. It's probably worth me also saying that, like you, Virginia, and many of you probably listening right now, I share a passion for sustainability. I just think it is so important. You know, we've got to try and make things better in the world. So all of you that might be working in this space, fantastic that you're with us and driving this mission, this critical mission forward.
Fabulous. Thank you, Justin. And I wanted just to say today we're going to talk about strengths. Obviously, you mentioned that already, but especially why we should focus on strengths rather than gaps in our careers to progress or to start a new career, especially in sustainability, like we said, because my audience is mainly made of that. And I'll just say hi to Mary. And he said, nice to be here sipping a cup of coffee. There you go. I'm sipping a cup of coffee too. So cheers, Mary. Okay, so Justin, we said we are going to talk about strengths, but what is the main issue there? Because the reason why I invited you along in this series that talks especially about careers in sustainability is that I've seen a lot of people when they read, for example, the job descriptions for a job they want to apply for, they focus on the gaps, they focus on what they don't have. Yeah. But in general, in careers, we focus on what we don't have yet. And, you know, sometimes it feels like being a Boy Scout and adding little badges to your jumper. But actually, I found in my own career, and I will perhaps share that later, but focusing on strengths is so much more powerful. Do you want to share your view in that sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so true. It is very easy to look at a job description and see those things that you think, no, I don't have that. Well, then the next question is, well, how critical is that? I mean, for some particular attributes or skills, it may be critical, and you may need to take maybe a little bit of study in some particular topic or course to boost your skills. And I often feel that, you know, even if you don't necessarily have the right skill, it's still worth making contact with the people that are going to be employing you and showing them what you are doing to turn that gap around. Now, specifically when we think about strengths on top of this, Virginia, you're right. I mean, we go so much further when we focus on our strengths rather than our weaknesses. And it's very easy to look at the gaps in our education, in our learning, in our own personal attributes. Schools, employers, all of these areas often will say things like, well done, ooh, but could do better here. And what I like to say is, well, maybe those things that you're not so good at, maybe they don't matter as much as we think. And what we would say from a strengths-based approach is we say, okay, well, what are we strong at? And maybe I'll talk a little bit later about the Gallup Strengths Finder assessment that some of you may be familiar with. But what are we good at? What are those aspects of our strengths, our natural talents, that maybe we can reshape, that we can focus in such a way that it overcomes some of the limitations we may have in other areas. So there's a question to be asked. There's an analysis to take place where we look at what we have. How can we apply that to the situation that we're facing? And it's not just about applying for jobs either. When we think about roles we're in, maybe now or in the past, or indeed as we look forward in the future, the other key thing is thinking about who else we can partner with. You can see a big number 2 in the background around there, and that's actually a book called The Power of Two. And it's a Gallup book, but it's about reminding us that you don't always have to do things on your own, and you can partner with other people. And when we partner with other people, we can bring the strengths together. And a bit like the mathematical formula, when you do something to the power of 2, it goes even bigger. And that's very true in the case of strengths as well.
So in that sense, I have, the reason why I got into strengths is because my previous employer many years ago got us to do the Gallup Strength Finder assessment. And for me, I am quite a self-aware person. So I thought this is a waste of time. I know what I'm good at.
Yeah.
Then actually it was a complete eye-opener for me. And I have to say, because obviously you are a Gallup Strength Finder certified coach, but I'm not. I also use other strengths tools that are online. But to be fair, the Gallup is the most complete and scientifically proven and everything. And for me, it was a complete eye-opener when I actually saw that, for example, I am a learner.
Yes.
And that immediately, I put 1 + 1. I was like, okay, that's why I'm always looking for the next thing to read, to watch, to see, because I'm never satisfied with the knowledge I have. But probably the most puzzling for me was when I found out, for example, I'm a relator, which means, for those that are listening, that I am actually better at relationship with people I already know and growing those than actually breaking the ice with someone I don't know at all. And that led me to think, okay, then maybe say a sales position when I have to do cold calling wouldn't work for me. And I realized why I felt so uncomfortable when I had to pick up the phone and call someone. And it's just the way I am. And of course, we should believe in a growth mindset and, and overcoming some of these difficulties. But at the same time, if we focus on the strengths, we can play really to our strengths. So for best results.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's so interesting when you talk about the growth mindset, and it is a popular theme. How do we kind of grow our skills, our whole experience? And I can see that Natalia, you've mentioned job experience. Yes, it is critical. Of course it is. And that feeds into the whole self, the whole, who we are. And when that job experience is, if you like, carried out with the strengths overlay, wow, it's powerful. Now, let's take that growth mindset point.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I say about it. Absolutely. Let's expand our abilities, but let's expand them where we are strong.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I share a story. So one of the things in the Strengths Finder assessment, there are 34 themes of natural talent. I think I'll show everybody the book. This is what it looks like, everyone. So here's the book.
Yeah.
Discover your strengths. And when you take the assessment, you normally have your top 5, but you can, in fact, have the entire list of 34 natural themes of talent. And as Virginia says, decades of research are behind this. Now, what is interesting is when I first had my full list revealed, I discovered that focus and discipline, which are 2 of the themes, were quite low in my list. Oh my goodness. The sense of relief was huge because I suddenly understood those things that were at the bottom. And I have been fighting them for years and years and years. And I use that word deliberately, fighting, because it felt like a battle. Was I getting better? Was I growing in them? I'll be honest, not much. Maybe a little bit, but not much. And this whole sort of, when I was going through the study to become a certified strengths coach, it just changed my mindset, and it made me realize that actually I can let go of those. I need to watch them. I need to manage them. But actually, let's look at what's at the top. So for me, I've got one called Maximizer, which is about making things excellent. My number 2 is one called Adaptability. Oh my goodness, I rely on that so much in my job. I know if I'm in a group of 24 people, for example, and something goes wrong, I know I can trust my adaptability to take me through. And it does. And so when you talk about a growth mindset, what this means in strengths language is deliberate focus on those natural talents that you have, deliberate focus, thoughtful, intentional focus on them. So when I think about my adaptability, I'm thinking, okay, I've got a situation coming up. I've got a new project that's about to start. How am I going to adapt to that new environment? Maybe it's a totally new location that I am unfamiliar with. By mentally switching that on, I know that I start to enhance it. It's a bizarre, it's almost like a feedback loop. And that is how I now see the growth mindset, is that when we want to use a growth mindset mentality, yes, but do it with those things we're naturally strong at. And oh my goodness, they magnify. It's like an amplification, really.
Plus, maybe it's obvious to say, but we can't be good at everything, you know.
No.
We might as well spend our time on this earth just to point
Yes.
and focus on what we're really good at.
Yes.
I'm a strategic person, and that came through the test. And then when I actually realized, well, I am better at this sort of thing, I should really focus on leading the vision and the strategy of the group at that point and everything. So it really helped me clarify so much. But another thing you said before, referring to the book with the 2 on that you have there,
yes,
it is really important to, if you work in a team, to know the strengths of the other people as well, because that's how you maximize those strengths as a group, right? As a team.
Correct. And in fact, a lot of the work I do is with groups of people. And whenever we do that, we have this wonderful kind of, maybe the first half of the day is spent looking at ourselves and sharing with our friends and colleagues. And then the second half of the day is very much focused on, okay, so what does it look like as a whole team?
Yeah.
And that is magic. That is absolute magic. And when I think about people, you know, if we think about the original question about applying for jobs and so on. I think it's true to say that what we have to do is we have to consider, you know, what are we strong at and how can we maybe direct them to the particular role. And I think it's something, Virginia, about being honest as well. Mm-hmm. And whenever I work with people on career coaching and applying for jobs and so on, one of the things we try to do is make contact with the key people that may be doing that recruitment. And that's so key, because what we've got to do is we've got to put across a message of our energy and our enthusiasm and our strengths, and a recognition that where we may have a gap, we have something that can fill it.
Yeah.
And that something that we can fill comes from other areas of our natural talent. And I think this is something that we, you know, is key, because we know that the job market in particular is so difficult to fight our way through. And it's one of the reasons I play really hard on trying to at least make some sort of contact with the people actually doing recruiting or the interview. It's not easy. There's no hard and fast rule that says, yeah, this will work. But these are some of the tips I think about. You know, if we're going to be telling people about what we're strong at, we need to get it out there somehow. And often that's through a one-to-one relationship. Another thing that I've noticed, which I think is very powerful, is people that have been successful, I've had several people now saying to me that when they've mentioned their top 5 natural talents from the StrengthsFinder assessment, they believe it has helped them get the job, and they've maybe put it in the covering letter or on their CV. And I know, Virginia, you keep it on your CV, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, they're all there. I think because for me, I realized there is no other way I can communicate. If someone is going to look at my CV for 17 seconds, which is probably the time that, people dedicate to CVs, when they're recruiting, there is no other way through my skills and what I've done in the past to actually very clearly say what I'm all about. So if I put, I'm a strategic, and I'm a learner, and I'm a relator, etc., etc., all of that is literally one line on my CV right at the top under the summary, so that people say, okay, so this person can fit perhaps in that team or that team. And sometimes what we've done in the past doesn't completely reflect those. So I think you're right. If you can speak directly to the recruiter or to the team manager or whoever is going to recruit, fantastic. Otherwise, find a way of putting it in your CV or in your cover letter. The cover letter is always underrated. But I think it's a perfect place for filling the gaps and really explaining, reading between the lines of the CV, adding that, that depth of, the you, which is not just, my duties were X, Y, and Z, which happens on the CV.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting. I can see in the chat there, James says, putting across the message. Oh my goodness, the message, crafting our words carefully. That cover letter, wow, there's so much you can do to make that good and strong. Your CV, I mean, personally, I think CVs are horrible. And what I mean by that is that it's so much variety, and you might love it, but the next person who's doing the recruitment hates that style.
Yeah.
It's so personal, so personal. So there's no easy answer on CVs. I think they're one of the most unpleasant things to have to work with. But as someone like myself, a communications expert and someone that works a lot with visuals, I do try and look at the whole visual. What's the visual impact of something? And I've recently worked with someone who was applying for a job that would take her from the UK to Germany, and it was very exciting actually crafting the words so carefully. The words matter, like James says, putting across your message, getting what you want to say in a few key points and laying it out beautifully.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to say she was successful, this particular person. It was not an easy task. And actually, it was a good one, a good example, because one of the requirements was German language, and she did not speak it. But what she was able to do, she was able to communicate that she was passionate about the job. It was a sustainability job, actually, in one of the big wind energy companies. But she was also able to communicate what she was doing to fill that gap of German. So she was saying how she was studying it, and that she believed, having learned English, she was originally from another country, that she has the record that shows that she can fill that gap. And so, it was a nice story of how you can sort of approach some of the gaps you may see.
I love that, because often, especially I see in women, and I think you were in my discussion with a few weeks ago with Riyadh from Women in Sustainability. I see how women downplay themselves all the time, for a start, but also if they see a job description that has, say, 70% of their, what they can do and 30% they can't do, they don't apply because they think they have to have 100%. And it's not just women, also other people, sometimes do that. But I think it takes skills, but it's really important to show how you can fill those gaps, because recruiters go for the maximum, of course, the perfect person, but the perfect person doesn't exist. So showing how you can fill the gap through your strengths and other strengths can definitely help.
Absolutely.
Now, one question from Maria is, how can we teach our kids to develop their strengths? Which I think is a beautiful question.
Yeah, well, I'm so pleased Virginia went there. I spotted that too in the chat down there. Maria, I mean, brilliant. I'm going to refer you to a wonderful book that Gallup have produced. It's called Strengths-Based Parenting. Okay.
parenting.
Strengths-based parenting. Pretty sure that is the exact words for the title, but that is absolutely a book worth looking at. For the actual Strengths Finder assessment, they say that you shouldn't, it's not really suitable for anyone under the age of about 14, but there is a junior version where you get your top 3 strengths. So, you know, some really sort of forward-thinking parents, absolutely, they're trying to bring this into their lives with their, you know, as they bring up their children. And it's really hard because society says, you know, you need to create the well-rounded child, you know, and of course the schools put some, you know, constraints on that. Everyone has to have, you know, a certain level of maths. Everyone has to have a certain level of English or the language in your country. You know, there are some basics that have to be passed. And I actually do think there's a little bit of a gap there in that maybe the schools could do more to forgive some of the areas where people are less good and actually say, you're not so good here, but hey, you are wonderful here. Come on, let's nurture it.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a long journey before schools take a truly strengths-based approach. Some will be better than others. But Maria, yeah, if you as a parent want to do that, I would highly recommend it. And this book, Strengths-Based Parenting, I think the person who wrote it, I think, is someone that I had my some of my training from, and wonderful, superbly rich experience in the world of strength. So highly recommended that.
So if, for example, people wanted to take the test, I know that the Gallup Strength Finder, actually you have to pay now for to take it, at least for the first, is different levels of payment, isn't it?
That's correct. That's correct.
I know that you as a strength coach can actually help people if they want to take the test. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yes, I have access to a discount.
Just in case someone is interested, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. If anyone is, you know, and it's actually not that expensive. The full price is £20 in Britain, or $20 in the USA, and various other currencies. You know, work that one out for yourselves. But yes, I can arrange a discount. It depends which currency you want. So that can be useful for people. Also depends on whether they're business or personal VAT. But yeah, absolutely, Virginia. If any of you want to go through it and have a chat with me about it before you take the assessment, more than happy to do that and supply the discount that I'm entitled to.
Thank you. Now, another thing that came up from our little discussion yesterday, because obviously we prepped a little bit today, was the one point that I think is worth focusing on. So how we and you learn how to let go of your weaknesses, because that takes a little bit of thinking, self-awareness. How did you go on about this?
Yeah, well, I mentioned this sort of sense of relief with letting go of my low or poor focus and discipline. 2 great examples. How do you do it? It is practice. Definitely, it's practice. It is one of the reasons why, you know, and I think it's important to say that I do not work for Gallup and I get no commission or anything from them. But what I would say is that I attend a lot of their events for coaches, and Gallup are very, very good about this. They feel that one of the best ways, and I can see why they say this, and they say it as an independent thought. One of the things that can really help people is having a coach. In fact, it's a very American thing. They say everyone should have a coach. And I can see why. It does make sense. So I think that can be sometimes one of the techniques. And indeed, I have found that useful for myself. I work quite closely with a colleague of mine, and we sort of coach each other a little bit. And that's so helpful because it's just being able to discuss, okay, what is it that I'm less good at? What are those things that are lower down on my list? So for example, strategic thinking, there's a whole domain of strengths in that area, and they're all quite low on my list. And I think you're right, Virginia, when you talk about self-awareness, that is key. You're building your self-awareness. Part of this is that it's a process. It takes time. We build our self-awareness. We celebrate what we're strong at. We celebrate what we're strong at, and we look and we see exactly those moments of success, those peaks of excellence. And my goodness, they bring joy. Because I think one of the things we should perhaps say, and these are key pieces of key data points. So Gallup's research shows the following. I'm going to quote it as the research states it exactly, and I know it off by heart, so I've said it so many times. So here we go. People who focus on their strengths over and above their weaknesses are 6 times as likely to report feeling engaged in their jobs. I'll say it again. People that focus on their strengths over and above their weaknesses are 6 times as likely to report feeling engaged in their jobs. There's another key one we must quote as well. People who focus on their strengths over and above their weaknesses are 3 times as likely to report having an excellent quality of life. Now, those are really strong factors. Wow. And I think part of letting go of the weaknesses is by putting the focus on our strengths. What happens is you experience that joy. You experience feeling more engaged at work. You experience a more enjoyable life. And so it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, a sort of feedback loop that says to you, well, hang on, this is great. You know, why do I need to bother with those things that have been upsetting me for so years? And so gradually we can actually let go of them. And also by starting to understand that actually those things that we're less good at, we just need to manage them. So sometimes, yes, for your role, you might need a bit of skill in something. So maybe it is about just bringing your skills up a little bit. It's about having some skill and technique. So maybe you go on a training course or something, or it's about finding someone to work with or a group of people to work with to fill those gaps. And so it's, I think that's what I say. You're not going to let go of your weaknesses just like that straight away. But after a bit of time, as you start practice, as you invest in your strengths, I'm doing fast movements now because that's what it feels like. There's a snowball effect of a growing sort of set of strengths that you can just use. So, for example, maybe I should explain my number 5 strength is communication. And this kind of environment, I haven't been doing this kind of webinar, podcast, whatever you want to call it, for that long. But hopefully you're enjoying it. Hopefully you're finding it engaging. I love it now. Whereas when I was a little boy, I was incredibly shy. So something's happened. Something, you know, has been unleashed in me.
Now that takes me to a question that is connected to that. So if I did my Strength Finder test probably 5 years ago, do you reckon it would be different today? What is the research there? Does it change over time?
That was a big question we all asked our Gallup tutors. Like, does it change? Well, the answer from Gallup was a little. So if you were to see your full list, what you might see is a few movements. So some of them would move up and down. And maybe I should just, to give people an idea of the different types, let me just read out some of them. I said communication. I'm randomly opening the book here. Context, developer, that's helping people, a passion for helping others learn. What else have we got? Ideation, someone that loves creating ideas.
I'm one of them.
There we go. Futuristic, people that look into the future. Strategic, you've mentioned that. Empathy, that's my number 3 actually, really feeling what others feel. You know, in a training course, if someone's crying, upset, I'll probably cry and upset. You know, it's that kind of emotional attachment. Harmony, that's another one. I've actually got them all listed on the side here. I've got competition. You know, some people are highly competitive. They want to win. So it's about channeling those energies. Now, I've forgotten the question. What did you say?
Does it change over time?
Change. Do they change? Right. So you've had a few examples. So we might see some adjustment of them, but not big movements. It'd be very unusual unless maybe you took the test, the assessment, with the wrong kind of mindset. If you were thinking this is a test, well, it isn't a test. It's a gift. Every unique combination is valuable, which is one of the reasons why it should never be used for recruitment, because then people try and fix their results, as it were. So, if there's anyone here that is involved with recruitment, no. By all means, ask people if they've done it and ask for their profile, but never use it for recruitment. People do, and it's completely wrong. Gallup are very much against that. But I have one theory, and this is not proven, but I have a belief that if someone has undergone a major life dramatic event, good or bad, I think perhaps we could see some big shifts, but I have no evidence. It just seems intuitive to me that could happen.
Because we experience it in our life, right? Like, our mentality might have changed following some, major event.
Some major thing. Yeah, I don't know. And Gallup would not say that does happen, but I just...
I can see that. I could see that. Absolutely.
Yeah. But in general, they stay fairly stable.
Okay, so I think, I don't know, is there anything else that people want to know about strengths or how to use them? We said, you can test yourself online in several ways. Gallup is probably the biggest way of doing it. There are others online as well that you can use.
There are, but I think that's
similar effects as well.
That's probably worth mentioning, Virginia. The Gallup work, as I say, I don't work for Gallup, but having studied a lot of these sort of different approaches and assessments, I've come to the conclusion that the Gallup approach is probably the best backed up with research, 40 years, in fact, of research behind this.
Absolutely. So Elisabeth is asking, never thought of writing my strengths from the assessment on the CV. As you did, you have done, Virginia. Elisabeth and I have to say, we used to work together. So probably we've done it at the same time. Something I advise doing, so little space and a lot of it in, or perhaps in the cover letter. In my personal CV I got a summary with all my, sort of a very shrunk version of what I can do in terms of skills and qualifications. And then underneath, strength find strengths or something like that, and then just the 5 top. So and then I start with this is the job I'm doing now, etc. So it literally takes one line, but you could put it in the cover letter as well if you're able to make it part of it. What do you reckon, Justin?
I totally agree. You could do it in either place. So this example of this person going to Germany, we put it in the cover letter for that one. And she just and here's the thing, because obviously when you send it to somebody, they may think, well, what's this? I've never heard of it. Well, that in itself, how wonderful, may spark an interesting conversation. So it is good. So that's why I encourage people. So what she did is I think it was sort of towards the bottom of the letter, she wrote something like, you may be familiar with Gallup Strengths Finder. If you are, my top 5 strengths are bump, 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 bump. So something as short as that, but it's acknowledging that someone may be familiar, but not, or not. So you may be familiar with, if you are, bum, 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 bum. Or you could say, if you are familiar with Gallup Strengths Finder, you may be interested to know that my top 5 are bump, 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 bump.
Or even if you are more crafty, you could put, for each one, like a very short paragraph in the cover letter that demonstrate how you demonstrated in your working life, your friends. So that could be quite nice, because you're already good. Even if they're not familiar with the system, but knowing how you come up with ideation. For me, how do I come up with ideas? So what ideas did I come up with? What strategies did I come up with in my working life, etc. So all of this can be demonstrated via, hopefully you've done a job at least in which you could express your strengths, because that's the thing. one thought from me on that, and the connection that I always make with Ikigai, so the Japanese concept that means a reason for being, is that obviously if you are very well aware of your strengths, this is what you can do and probably have a passion for doing as well, which already ticks a couple of boxes in if you're looking for the sweet spot where you're doing something that you like and something you have a passion for and you can do and the world needs and they can pay for, which is something I'm very passionate about, the Ikigai model.
Yeah.
Couple of more questions. Is a weakness, can a weakness be transformed into strength? That's a beautiful one. Hold on, 1 minute. Let's go back to Elisabetta, which is the person who asked the question before. Something unusual, very insightful on who you are to include. You might be teaching them something. Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, if you put that in the CV and they don't know what the strength finder is, that you're teaching them something. That's for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. As I say, it does spark the conversation, which can be fascinating. Shall I answer this one from Alessandro?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Whoa, Alessandro, you are asking a good question there. Can a weakness be transformed into a strength? Basically, no. Is the answer. It's quite funny. Gallup actually call them lesser strengths. But, you know, to be honest, we can call them weaknesses. They try to be positive about everything. It's quite amusing. But yeah, no, Alessandro, it's so hard. Some of you may like to go, well, hang on, Justin, hang on, Virginia. I've heard of this 10,000 hour rule. There's a book, I think. 10,000 hours in, I can be brilliant at anything. And the classic examples are things like playing the piano or something. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Yes, quite possibly, if you put 10,000 hours into a particular thing that you're less strong on, you will become really good at it. But here's the trick. Think about that. 10,000 hours is an enormous amount of time. And what I would rather do is put 2,000 hours into 5 things maybe, or just 2,000 hours into one thing instead of 10,000 hours and be brilliant at that. And that is really what the formula is with strength. So those things that you're really strong at, you won't need to invest as much to be brilliant. And the exciting part of it is as you invest in those things you've got natural talent for, natural strength for, it's so quick, the improvement. And the feedback is you get excited. You go, oh my goodness, that really worked. Look, you know, if I'm in a chaotic training event, I can look at the end and go, look how my adaptability carried me through that. Whoa. And it feels good. So we feel good. There's an emotional response. There's a well-being, I guess. That's a big topic this year. You know, it does something to us. Whereas working hard to bring something that's low down up, it just takes too much effort, and it's not much fun either, Alessandro. You know, if I think of some of the things I've been fighting, I mean, I know I've quoted the focus and discipline. You can tell I have fought them for many years. I've never enjoyed fighting them. Never. It was never fun. Did I get a bit better? Yeah. So yes, you can improve them. And I think I have this expression GE, which means good enough.
Yeah.
And that's maybe what we're looking for. Just good enough to do the things you need to do to be successful in your role. That's what it is.
The other thing is you could always, hopefully you are in the position, if you are, say, a bit more senior, to actually offload these things to someone else in the team that can do them better than you and thrive into them. Very, you know, an example in my family, my sister is so good at old admin stuff. She loves that, you know, she loves spreadsheets. So she's like thriving with those. I hate it.
Right.
So, but she has a job in admin now. And if, you know, I actually gave her some of my admin because she loves it. You know what I mean? And it could be someone in your family, it could be someone in your office. The good thing is we're all different. And that's why I think using the strengths as a team has an enormous amount of power in that sense. Nothing gets left, you know, undone, theoretically, you know. You can just, you can just pass it on and delegate.
Yes, and it's interesting you talk about that passing things around. So I'll maybe share an example. I work across lots of different businesses and organizations. So from massive ones like IBM to something a not-for-profit, the English National Opera. So it's completely different, small group, a development team there. And, very skeptical, he admitted it. He was quite skeptical about one of the key stakeholders, but he loves it. And he actually has told me that they have a team grid, so they know everyone's strengths. And he says he uses that to help work out which tasks or which, new project elements that they might be working on might be best done by different people. I mean, that's great, because of course, he knows that he's going to get a better job done because those people are already strong in that area. And B, those people are going to be happier. They're going to enjoy it more.
Yeah. It's productivity, enjoyment, so many benefits.
Yes, it's fascinating, actually, that in terms of statistics. I mean, I won't bring them all out here, but you're right. The evidence is that teams that focus on strengths, that have strengths-based approaches, are more productive, they're more profitable. It's fascinating.
Someone is Caroline asking a question about salary. Do you know anything in that sense, whether salary is affected by career change when you bring strengths and transferable skills, although you might not have so many years of experience in that role? So if you play to your strengths, basically, is there any research that you're aware of in that sense?
Yeah, let me just sort of look. Thank you, Carola. So how is salary affected by a career change where you still bring strength and transferable skills, though not as many years of experience in the very role you're applying? Oh, it's really, really difficult to know, Carola, how the salary would be affected. However, I think, the thought in my head here is that if you're somehow, at the beginning of a new role where it might be a bit different to before, but it's strengths-based, more aligned to your strengths, you might find your salaries down a little bit whilst you're being tested by the organization. But I think, Carola, what's going to happen is, as you then progress, if those strengths are allowed to flourish, if they're allowed to shine, well, I would imagine your work's going to be great. Your attitude, you'll be smiling at work. All of those things lead into salary discussions. Yeah. So I think, yes, there's absolutely scope to see salaries being increased in that scenario as you go through. Taking a strengths-based approach, you might need, depending if you've got communication as one of your strengths or not, or some of the other influencing ones like, yes, woo. There's one called woo, which is winning others over. So kind of influencing them. So salary negotiation, maybe you can increase your salary there. But if you didn't have strength in that area, then probably it's about having a discussion with someone who might be able to help you value yourself in the true way. Carola, I hope that answers your question. Do maybe put something in the chat there. This is great. I'm loving the chat. It's good.
I'm sure, I mean, and from what you were saying, the research you mentioned from Gallup, people do enjoy their work more, and that automatically, anyway, is probably leading to better salaries somehow.
I would hope so. Yes. Absolutely.
Virginia's mentioned that it's important to find what you enjoy being good at. But if you have a skill that is more desirable in a workplace but nurtures your soul less, how do you balance those two needs?
Yeah. Sylvie, lovely question. I mean, we have to remember that, we can be very idealistic and say that we're going to have our role completely focused on our strengths. Well, the reality is, of course, we may have to divert a little bit. What I always say is that, you might have a skill or some particular thing that you're having to use in a particular area to get something done as part of your role. What I would say is, look to the side. What elements of your strengths can you bring in that make it more enjoyable, lifting your soul? You've used that word. You're absolutely right. I think that's really critical. And I often, when I'm working with people, particularly young people quite early in their careers, where maybe they have to accept a little bit more hardship, if you like, you know, the role's not quite right yet, but, you know, they feel like they need to impress, to please people, so they do it. And I always say to them, if you're not totally happy in your role yet, keep looking around you, stay curious, have conversations with people that are not necessarily part of the main role you're involved with. In other words, expand your vision, expand your network, because you never know where that's going to lead. And it may well, Sylvie, lead to something which is like, oh, I didn't know that's possible.
Yeah.
Maybe I could get involved then. And you might find, yeah, you might be able to. It might take a year, but by making those connections and finding those areas that may feed your soul more, it will happen. Certainly. In fact, the whole reason I'm here doing training and all these sorts of things was based on that approach, completely based on that approach. And it took about, nearly 10 months, I think, for suddenly a breakthrough to happen. And suddenly I got this new opportunity. But it was through reaching out beyond my role. I mean, ultimately, my advice, Sylvie, is always try and follow your passions where your soul is being nurtured, because that's so key. That's so key.
And if you did, I don't know if you did your strength finder, but if you do find out your strengths, you will see that actually they're all things you enjoy doing. It's just because, you know, naturally what comes out is not necessarily something that you're good at, but you don't enjoy. If I think about mine, it's all things that I would spend my whole life doing every day, every minute of my day. So I think that obviously you're right, not in an ideal world, and sometimes we have to take a bit of stuff that we don't like, but networking, like you said, is so key to reaching better positions and doing things you enjoy more. It's
a beautiful thing to do. I mean, as I say, you just never know what you're going to find out. I'm always astonished in a way how people stay so quiet when they're surrounded by extraordinary opportunities they just don't know about yet.
Exactly. You see the tip of the iceberg with jobs, for example, being advertised. Talk to people, and we discussed that last week with my other guest, but you know, talk to the companies that you want to work for. LinkedIn is a fantastic tool for that. Just approach people, talk, ask for advice. Everyone, you know, the majority of people are happy to give advice, and you never know.
I mean, maybe I can just share one tiny example. So there's one client, there's a couple of clients I desperately want to do work with. One is Triodos Bank. Probably the most ethical bank in the UK.
Oh, the bank, the
bank. It's a Dutch parent-owned. The Dutch company is a parent company. They're present in a few countries in the EU and in the UK. And the other one is Ecotricity. Now, my approach with them is I'm just keep going. I just keep trying to keep the contact and show the interest.
They tumble. They say.
And I'm confident that eventually something will happen. But there's a key word here: patience.
Patience.
We have to be patient.
Yeah.
But we have to be consistent and persistent. Consistent and persistent. And eventually it happens.
Absolutely. Same here. Got the same experience in my life. Right. As we wrap up, Sylvie's saying, wonderful advice, thank you. And by the way, you're doing a wonderful job, and you are both super engaging. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvie. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Okay, guys. So if you want to get in touch with Justin, he's obviously on LinkedIn. He's tagged in this post. And so please do connect with him. As you can see, wonderful person, super fun as well. And thank you. Fantastic session. I'm really, really glad. So thank you, Justin, for your time today. I had a lot of fun. And
it's been great. It's wonderful. I'm just loving all the comments. James, I've got to call out James here. James, you've written so many super things. All little one-liners.
I think he's recording for himself and for others at the key point.
So
lovely. Thank you, everyone that followed us today, and we'll see you next week with another session. Next week we're going to talk about LinkedIn or mentorship, one of the two. Anyway,
brilliant.
December is all about career and sustainability. So I hope you're enjoying what we're doing here. But thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone. And I wish you very, very good afternoon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.